Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about some general God politics. This is going to be a video about an oversimplification about many gods. They are mostly lords. I'll get to that in a bit. Now let's begin the video. So what is God politics? So God politics is a term about the decisions that gods make. So essentially just politics, but instead of, politicians or kings and emperors, replace them with gods. Now God, in and of itself, is a very loose term, and that means there are three different types of main gods. There are lords, princes, and demystices. A lord is a title with immense power and authority. So this means that the lord is the top of the title. This is meant to represent powerful figures. The most powerful, I should say. Prince is a title that is passed down from a lord, or a title with similar power, down to a being who serves them. So, some things to note are, the lord can still control the magic inside of their prince. This means that if a prince is planning to rebel or is disloyal, the lord can simply take away the prince's power. However, there are cases in which princes can kill their lords and then take their title. This has happened throughout the history in god politics. However, it is quite rare, and there are only a handful number of examples of this. Also, I don't know what I was going to say. A demysis is a name of powerful beings without any title. This means that they are simply powerful beings without any title. So, demystices are usually the weakest because a title carries power with it. You see, a title isn't just a name. In order to get a title that people recognize you, you have to have certain magic within you. So let's say if you were the Prince of Fire, you need to have a lot of fire powers within you. If you are the Lord of Destruction, you need to have a lot of magic that can destroy. Now, titles are also reminiscent of a person's behavior. So, for example, a Lord of Destruction will, of course, be more destructive in nature. Now, there are more titles, however, they are very rare, and a lot of them are just variations of lords and princes, or demystices, or people who've given demystices a title. These are the main three titles of gods. So, over 120,000 years before the first era, which is 120,000 years before the second era, there was the Revelance Stone. This stone is responsible for the creation of 5 demystices, each taking a different form and forming the first 5 ancient races. One of them declared himself the Keshuka, the Lord of all, causing the other 4 demystices to ally with each other, and they decided to attack him. However, the 4 demystices betrayed each other, and fighting between the 5 raged on. Eventually, thousands of years later, they all met in the consultant, which is a meeting of lies. After a long, fierce debate, the demystices agreed to combine each other's bodies into a single entity. His name would become Ephesus. So, the beginning is very vague, and I might change it in the future. And I might more add details to it, but moving on. The Revelance Stone didn't only create these 5 demystices. In fact, it created many more powerful beings. Also, it's the oldest artifact to have ever existed, said to be older than all realms. It's also um, it's also swapped hands many times throughout history, with many gods, lords mainly, attempting to use it for their own power. However, the the complication in the sheer, I guess, magical power of the stone made it impossible for any god, lord, prince, demisers, to take the magical power of this stone into themselves. So why did they make the decision to combine into Ephesus? So two main reasons. So they believed that continuing to fight would end up destroying all of their realms, and thus there would be nothing left if they had continued to fight. And secondly, they wanted to create a pure living being, which they themselves failed to become. Ephesus. So, Ephesus was created around 100,000 of the First Era as a product of the merging of the five Demises. To oversimplify, he had the task of creating a large and peaceful realm. This realm would become known as Edorin. Ephesus was able to create many things, including lakes, land, and trees. He was also anyway, Ephesus was able he also created the magical gem, which would be able to transfer magic directly from one source to another easily. During this time, he had 3 children who weren't too important themselves, but who would lead to many important and powerful descendants, giving birth to many lords, princes, and demises. That would be a part of Ephesus' bloodline. However, Ephesus had a very difficult time in creating his realm. He often battled his inner thoughts and desires. He oftentimes had to spend years meditating to remove the thoughts, feelings, and urges from his body. He also had a hard time managing his immense power, as he directly took the power of 5 powerful gods. He had a difficult time. Even with all of these issues, Ephesus pushed through, being able to create the peaceful realm he was set out to create. In the end, he began to meditate and connect within himself, and it's said that he found near eternal and he is said to have found near eternal wisdom in this state. Afterwards, he sacrificed himself, imploding and ascending his soul and consciousness beyond the limits of flesh and mind. In doing so, he released all knowledge of all known magic to the world. He was able to use what was left of him to form a shield around his realm, helping to secure a peaceful realm. He became known as the Lord of Magic after his ascension, because his followers believed that he created magic, and so that's the reason why they believe he to be the Lord of Magic. And the other thing is that many gods actually agree with this. Lords, princes, and demises all recognize Ephesus as the Lord of Magic. If you want me to talk about Ephesus' religion, then comment down below and I'll most likely do a video about it sometime in the future. With Ephesus gone, his descendants were banished from Edorin and lived on their own lives separate from their father. Notably, They would often marry with powerful deities, I'll call them, creating powerful offspring who would become legendary themselves. Kermene was another important Demesis for the era. He was initially a soldier of one of the Demesises during their wars against each other, but he eventually deserted. Afterwards, he began to create a realm known as Arisen. Arisen would later go on to be the battleground where many lords would go to in order to battle each other. It was important due to the amount of magical knowledge that was inside of it, as there were stories of an infinite library containing all knowledge of the world inside of this realm. He was a studier of Ephesus, and after Ephesus ascended, releasing all of the known knowledge of magic, he acquired much of it and wrote it down in these libraries. Now, he would go on to have many children of his own who would become powerful. That's a bit strange. What? Oh, weird. Okay, so Nephorn was the grandson of Ephesus, with his father being Eridan, Ephesus' eldest child. He created a realm named after himself, where he famously created the first rivers in history. He's also acclaimed to have created the first clouds and rain, which allowed for him to sustain life in his realm. As you know, water is necessary for life. He also is known for creating many crops in order to feed his realm. He was known as the Lord of Bravery, Combat, and Warriorship because of his many fights with foreign Demesises who wished to take over his realm so that they could raise powerful armies of their own with much more ease. However, many who worship him also call him the Lord of Water as well, due to his creation. Even though he didn't create water itself, he essentially did by creating rain and river and drinkable water that could be sustained. He was able to defeat his brother Nakurva, the Lord of Death and Destruction, in numerous battles, alongside being able to protect his realm for thousands of years. Eventually, he was killed by Azura, who soon took over his realm. As those of you who've watched my Azura video will know, that's what happened. Nakurva was the grandson of Ephesus, and he was Nephorn's brother. He took a much different path from his brother. After serving a prince under the Lord of Destruction, Nephirim, he betrayed Nephirim, killing him and taking the title Lord of Destruction. He later went on to invade Arisen numerous times, attempting to find the ancient library of knowledge. He failed, but gained infamy for his ability to destroy and cause death to his enemies, leading him to get the title Lord of Death as well. He was able to inflict such heavy casualties against his enemies that it said that battlefields were laid with dead for months and years to come. Even tens of thousands of years later, there are many bones that piled up against each other in many of the battlefields he fought in. He was able to defeat most of his enemies, except Nephorn and a few others. He had many, many wives and children, many of whom would become important for the future, such as Apollyon, the future Lord of Destruction, and Olius, the future Lord of Death. So, moving on, the Chiton was an organization of powerful lords which formed around 40,000 of the First Era. It composed of originally only 3 lords, Gathan, Acrodome, and Olius. But Over time, it grew to encompass many lords, princes, and loyal followers. Now, it would be famous for creating the realms of Nurun, Paradise, and many other places. Many lords, if not almost all of them, after 40,000, are involved with the Chitin, like in one way or another. Be it through being enemies of the Chitin, like Azura, or being within the Chitin. Dathan was born somewhere around the 45,000 of the First Era. He was a warrior and fought on many battlefields until he met Aquadome, and he soon married her. Aquadome convinced him to quit in his wars, and so he did that. He went on to form the Chitin alongside of her, and became the Lord of Loyalty, Order, and Justice. However, he did give away his title, Loyalty of Justice, to a different god, Judicator, the Lord of Judgment. He would play an important role in the Chitin, defending it from numerous invasions. Dathan, though, did have many downsides, as he would order massacres of many areas throughout history. Aquadome was the great-granddaughter of Evelyn. She was intended to be married off to a powerful lord, Yakuma, the Lord of Strength and Power. However, she instead fled from her home and took an interest in creating life. You see, in her earlier years, she had already attempted to create life. However, her mother vehemently decided that she was going to be married to Yakuma. She instead would go on to form the Chitin with Dathan and Oleus, and become by far one of, if not the most important lords/lordesses in all of history. Oleus was born as a son of Nakvara. He dueled his father before being trained by him, as Nakvara was impressed by Oleus' skill and power. However, eventually, after finding out about all of the pillaging, slaughter, and all the other horrors that his father did, he fled from him, and ended up with Aquadome and Dathan. Afterwards, Aquadome would terrify him, which would allow for him to make a deal, in which he would be the final of the three lords who founded the Chitin. He took the title Lord of Death and the Afterlife, though the Lord of Afterlife title was soon taken away from him. This began a downward spiral, leading to Oleus slowly hating the Chitin, which would lead him to betray the Chitin. He eventually reached his peak of power and insanity in around 10,000 to 6,000 of the First Era before slowly declining. Oleus's story is quite big, so I might do one about him in the future. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you who spends a small part of their day to watch my videos. Now, some things to say: if you are interested in a particular deity, in a particular lord, then comment down below and make sure to let me know. Anyways, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Comment and check out my community posts. I'm going to revive doing them. But anyways, I hope each and every one of you has a good day or night, and I'll see you all another time.